This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbot.
Everything is going extremely well.
Well, let's get back to it.
Sir Gavin Williamson. That took me by surprise. Sir Gavin Williamson. That sounds right, yes?
No.
Not really. Why is he a sir, by the way? And has he still got that performative whip on his desk? What a clown. Rishi Sunak says he can't fix all of our problems. And that's true. The Conservative government can cause all of our problems, but they can't actually fix them. That's someone else's job, probably Jeremy Corbyn's or some tofu-eating lefty's job. Blame them. It's nothing to do with him. This country was like that when he got here. Fishy Sunak, this week's Prime Minister, called for us to be honest about the trade-offs that we face. Trade-offs like presiding over the longest NHS waiting lists since forever versus pointing at foreigners in dinghies and making us angry about that instead. Trade-offs like children's teeth rotting in their mouths because they can't get dental appointments in the sixth richest country on earth versus yelling about gender-neutral toilets and making us angry about that instead.
Absolutely.
The Prime Minister has said that inflation is the number one enemy. And you might be forgiven for thinking that a government that let £70 billion of public money just disappear into the ether in fraud was the number one enemy. Or that the previous Conservative Prime Minister, making everyone's mortgage costs shoot through the roof and almost caused the pension industry to collapse and the complete economic breakdown of the entire nation in about 2 hours flat, was the number one enemy. But Fabulous Fishy had nothing to do with any of that. Goodness me, no. Have you seen his eyes? Have you seen his smile? And those skinny little schoolboy suits? Isn't he an absolute dream? In a comical aside, he vowed that he would rebuild trust in the government. Good one, Fishy. I mean, that was almost as funny as when you said that you would be leading a government of integrity, and then you hired the fired Cruella Suella, and that empty void of sneering vacuity that is, shut up and go away. Fishy vowed to rebuild trust in the government, the man who, in his short time in government, has managed to preside over £70 billion of wasteful spending, fraud, dodgy contracts, and all while maintaining the best, most perfect hair in all of Parliament.
You don't need to put all of that product in your hair. You just don't.
You just don't. He said he is doing everything he can to help. Hey, Fishy, stop helping. We can't afford it. In an interview with The Times, Fishy said that he understood the anxiety of households across the UK amid rising inflation and the cost of living crisis. He really is funny, no?
No.
I mean, he has about as much understanding of the problems that we, the little people, not leprechauns, are all facing as the Sultan of Oman. I mean, the only thing he has to worry about is if the family in the mansion next door get a bigger pool than him. Can you imagine the embarrassment?
No.
Me neither. Apparently the UK is facing a £50 billion black hole in public finances, which would not be the case if he had not presided over blowing $70 billion on PPE we couldn't use or didn't show up, and the fraud that ran through his furlough scheme like words through Blackpool Rock. I'm not saying the fraud was deliberate on his part, but £70 billion is quite a big number. And now we are being invited to believe that the man who oversaw that is the chap to fix the nation. That's like saying the bloke who presided over the test and trace clown show would be the best person to help you land a plane. I mean, he can't even say it.
Contact tracing.
Oh, give it up, Bodge. You're never going to get it. Fishy said, it's right we are honest about the trade-offs we face. He said, how does a government do everything? It just does it by borrowing money, which ultimately leads to, as we saw, high inflation, a loss of credibility, and spiking interest rates. Well, you know what? Not necessarily. It depends, doesn't it? I mean, the government borrowed money before Blunder Truss took over. We owed staggering amounts as a country before she took the helm. The disaster that unfolded was the Conservatives Party doing, not government borrowing. It depends on what you use that borrowing for. I mean, if you just use it to give tax breaks to Tory donors, then that's a bad thing. Unless you're a Tory donor. He said you have to make sure that as you're doing things, you're doing it in a way that's fair and being honest with people that, of course, no government can fix every problem. Life is not that simple, he said. Like we're 5. Well, it's pretty simple when you're causing the problems, though, ain't it, Bodge? Yes. Where is he, by the way? Is he busy working for his constituents in wherever the hell it is? Rishi Sunak also said that he recognises the concerns of families across the UK facing crippling increases to their monthly mortgage bills. He said, I absolutely recognise the anxiety that people have about mortgages. He says it's one of the biggest bills people have, he said, reading off a card that a poor person wrote for him so as to appear normal-ish. You know, like trying to pay for someone else's petrol by waving a credit card in the air like it's a magic wand. So he said, so what I want to say to people is that I'm going to do absolutely everything I can to grip this problem to limit the rise in those mortgage rates. Well, how's he doing so far?
Oh, fabulous.
Just as long as he doesn't go to the Tories' safe space and start bleating on about Margaret Bloomin' Thatcher as though she was some goddess of generosity and wisdom. And then he said, I think inflation is the number one enemy, as Margaret Thatcher rightly said.
Oh, no.
Oh, Struth. And then it got truly weird. He said, I think my record speaks for itself. He actually said that. My record speaks for itself. Yeah, it does. It says... No! He pointed to his own record as Chancellor. You know, when he introduced the COVID furlough scheme. As to why people should trust him when it comes to running the economy.
What?
While he was running the economy, this government was involved in £70 billion of wasteful spending. Deals for PPE that went nowhere and fraud. 70 billion gone. That's about enough to give every pensioner in the country over £5,000 in free cash. Or enough to give 7 Tory donors £10 billion each. Choices. Choices. The PM said, I completely acknowledge that the trust has been damaged over the past few weeks and months. I realise that trust is not given, trust is earned. My job is to regain people's trust. He talks like he's just arrived on a yacht and seen the devastation caused by 12 years of Tory misrule and decided to roll up his sleeves and lend a hand. Well, the call is coming from inside the house. He said the only thing that people will take away from the summer, hopefully from my track record as Chancellor, is I'm someone they can trust understands the economy. I'm someone they can have confidence in, who will manage us through what will be a difficult economic time. I've got a track record in doing it. Well, I've absolutely no idea what it refers to in that sentence, but it can't have anything to do with what went before it. And aside from the autumn statement, Sunak said the main issue preoccupying him over the preceding 48 hours was the migrant crisis in the English Channel. Because that's what he'll use to distract us from the disaster that is fast unfolding, that has everything to do with the current government, because they're all the same blooming faces that we've had inflicted upon us for the last 12 years now. Same faces, same ideology of winner takes all, same direction of travel, same disastrous Brexit, same austerity, same thing over and over, relying on us to be gullible enough to think that this time a new leader is going to be different. Well, here comes the new boss, same as the old boss.
Rock and roll!
What a way to run a country, eh?
Dreadful.
Well, never mind, I suppose we're stuck with it. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nica@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Guildford. Erin. Wait a minute. My fault entirely. One moment, please. And again, Erin.
Hi, Nick. How are you?
I am great, mate.
Good. You are my favourite person on Saturday, I have to say.
Oh,
or any
thanks.
night that you're on.
Thanks,
you're
Erin.
You're better than any comedy actor I've ever seen before, just listening to you. Anyway, I just want to phone and say, do you know what? It's just getting too much, really. I've disassociated myself from life, actually.
Yeah.
I work for the NHS.
I've
work
had it
loads
up
of
to
hours.
here. You work for the NHS?
Oh. Yeah.
Yep.
I work fundamentally more than 37 hours a week, probably more 60, right?
Blimey.
And I'm a single mum. I'm disabled. So I earn above the bracket that I can get help with, right?
Oh.
So I can't afford to pay my mortgage. I've had to sell my house. I have to sponge off my mother, which she hates. She won't let me have a cabin in the garden, by the way. I've tried.
A cabin?
So, yes, she won't let me have it. No, I tried it.
You want to become a woods person?
Well, I'd rather be anything than anything at the moment, quite frankly. So, do you know what I mean? So I'm just like, there's people in purgatory. So my point is, right, we can't look at this as a population in its entirety. Everyone bangs on about the data. Let's break it down. Population health, right?
Data? What data are people banging on about?
Well, let's talk about the elective
Don't
recovery.
even get you started on the data.
Don't get me started on the data. We're not Grand Prix drivers. We're not Formula One.
Yeah.
But the data is the answer, right? We need to look at people in cohorts. Right? You can't put a blanket interest rate on.
Now, wait a minute. This is beginning to sound like a sociology lesson. Boring. Is this not Sociology 101? Cohorts.
No,
I heard the word cohorts. Don't you ever call this show and use the word cohorts to me again. Yeah, Erin, I've got to go, but thanks for that.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet @LBC. Text 84850.
My view is the change of leader requires a general election.
Requires. His view is it requires a general election. This is a tweet from last night. It says, Nick, I must have missed the memo saying that we changed to a firework week rather than a firework night. Why does everybody have to do everything so early nowadays? Fireworks going off all night, he says. The dog is running around scared and nearly knocked the Christmas tree over. A listener with material.
Oh, no.
And this says, the extra fee seems to work for theatre tickets. Now, I don't know what this is in relation to, because this was last night. It was probably an immediate reaction to some passing comment of mine. But it says, the extra fee seems to work for theatre tickets. 40 quid for the ticket, £5 booking fee, £1.50 reservation fee, and any other fee you want to add on. Then add the car parking, the train tickets, and the huge drink prices. I had a lovely time at the Theatre Royal in Brighton seeing the Spike Milligan played by Ian Hislop. By the way, I just won't have a holiday for a few years, says Carl in Hailsham. I've been charged a transaction fee before. What's that about? I mean, they do the booking fee and the reservation fee, and then there's a transaction fee and a delivery fee, even if they deliver the tickets by email.
What?
Yeah. They're having a laugh, ain't they? And then £25 for 2 gin and tonics.
Booze.
Exactly. I am stunned. Bloomsbury. Sophia.
Good evening.
Yes, Sir Sophia.
Bubble, bubble, fire and trouble.
Toil.
It's my birthday.
Your birthday?
It's built in.
What is?
Try to remember the 5th of November.
Yeah.
Run, fire, and trust.
Yeah, toil.
It would be better to have trust than what we've got at the moment. I'm sorry I made the comment.
Liz Truss?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What, her, as opposed to what we've got now?
I'm genuinely unclear.
She is still genuinely unclear. Let's leave her where she is and she can stew in her unclarity.
Anyway, I signed. I had people wishing me happy birthday all day long, without the fireworks, and then I have signed a contract for music, which allows them to be played in conferences, meetings, and musical gatherings.
What music is it that you're talking about?
I've been playing for 4 decades in Covent Garden. After all, I mean, when Elvis sort of collapsed under a lot of drugs.
You were ready to take his place. You've been playing music for 4 decades in Covent Garden?
I certainly, yes.
Despite numerous complaints.
No, the market manager asked me to come all the time, and I took over.
So what kind of music do you play there, Sophia?
I was playing music all the time.
Does it sound like this? Anything like that?
I was playing guitar all the time.
Guitar.
And flute.
Do you happen to have your guitar at hand?
Well, it's gone under contract at the present moment. But
you've signed your guitar away under contract?
No, I borrowed another guitar.
Do you have it to hand?
I couldn't move it now.
It's like heavy.
It's heavy, yes.
really
but
a
I'll
heavy
send you
guitar.
A sample.
Yeah, it's
I'll
heavy.
send you a sample.
Yeah, really, really heavy.
Yowza.
Well, that sounds like you're threatening me now. You're going to send me a sample of music?
Wonderful, yes. Well, real people who really enjoyed it.
I prefer that it would be a sample of music rather than, anything else.
Exactly. Well, I was singing as well. We were singing.
Oh, okay. Well, let's hear some of that right now.
All right. Where have all the flowers gone?
Oh, dear. I hate when that happens. Just ran out of time on that call. Very unfortunate there, Sophia. Better luck next time. 0345 6060 973. Where am I? Oh, this says, Nick, what are your views on Matt Hancock going to Australia for £400,000 to eat kangaroo and do bush tucker trials on I'm a Celebrity, says Darren in London. £400,000, and you believe that? I mean, I am absolutely stunned. £400,000 for what? Well, just so that people can torture him for a while. And if it gets too much for him, then he can say, oh, well, I'd love to stick around and eat more, whatever it is. But I have to go and take care of the concerns of my constituents. And his constituents are going, no, don't hurry back on our account. His constituents. Wait a minute, I have detailed files. Here we go. I'm not going to watch that show. I'm just not going to watch that show. I'm allergic to Ant and Dec. I don't care. I'm not watching. Former I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here campmate Stanley Johnson out of Bodger.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
His dad, I'm blaming the parents, suggested that Matt Hancock has a break clause in his ITV contract that will allow him to leave the jungle should an emergency transpire in his constituency. I mean, what emergency could possibly happen that Matt Hancock would be the answer to? One source insisted that Matt Hancock will still be able to fulfil the duties of an MP despite being 10,270 miles away in Australia.
What?
Yeah, right. He'll do it telepathically. What are they talking about? The former health secretary's signing stunned MPs and his constituents. His constituents couldn't believe it because it reminded them that the majority of their number who expressed a preference actually thought that Matt Hancock would be the best person to represent their interests. And his fellow MPs were stunned because they can't believe any TV show would give him £400,000 to appear on it. Of course, Matt Hancock isn't doing it for the money. He's doing it to promote his dyslexia campaign. Yeah, I believe him. The series will feature stars including but not limited to Boy George, rugby ace Mike Tyndall, DJ Chris Moyles, hey, and other people I've never heard of. Matt Hancock has been stripped of the Conservative Party whip, but claimed that he could still be reached on urgent constituency matters while participating in I'm a Celebrity. No, he can't. A source close to the show told the Mail Online, Matt's working. He's had a number of online meetings since his arrival. Yeah. Insiders have revealed that the MP is being paid around £400,000 for his appearance in the jungle. The kind of money that TV people make. Holy macaroni. 400 grand. Apparently Boy George, out of Boy George, is getting even more than that. Well, at least Boy George has given the world a little bit of pleasure. Hasn't he? Do you really want to hurt me? You know, like that. Insiders have revealed that the MP is being paid around 400 grand for his appearance in the jungle. You could buy a house for that. You could buy 2 houses for that in some areas of the country. There was another reason, though. Perhaps you were aware of this. Because Matt Hancock just happens to have a book coming out.
Oh, no.
Yes, it's a coincidence. Just happens to have a book coming out. It was also revealed that the West Suffolk MP... Oh, it's the good people of West Suffolk that are responsible for this. Thanks a lot, good people of West Suffolk. See what you've done? The West Suffolk MP is going to be donating his parliamentary salary to charity amid backlash for accepting a £400,000 fee for joining the ITV show. Now, I'm curious about this. Does that mean all of his salary? Or just the salary that he would have earned in the weeks when he's away, that he is not here, supposedly doing his business? Because if it's the latter, then I would not be remotely surprised. If it was the former, if he's giving his entire salary to charity, then, colour me amazed. Maybe I'm amazed at the way you struck me.
Rock and roll!
One former minister has threatened to vote for him to eat kangaroo. Put down your food if you're eating, because you're not going to like this. You ready? Grip onto something firm. One former minister has threatened to, quotes, vote for him to eat kangaroo penis every night. And I mentioned this last night, it doesn't really matter which part of the kangaroo it is. If you are going to eat a kangaroo part, then you must ensure that it is not still attached to the kangaroo. That is vital. Keep that in mind. Write that down. Tory MP Tim Loughton said Matt Hancock had been, quotes, an absolute prat. Well, that's just true.
Affirmative.
Transport Secretary Mark Harper said he should step down as an MP. Most of us were unaware that he still was. He's still an MP? Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting said, we're going to make sure on a cross-party basis that Matt Hancock gets a fill of every creepy crawly in that jungle.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Listen to him. He knows everything.
Yeah, on the subject of that jungle show, Paul says, it's the insects I feel sorry for in the jungle. The poor things did not consent to be tipped over a creepy crawly. Good point, Paul. 0345 6060 973. Watford. Hello, Steve.
Hello, mate.
Steve.
Hope you're well.
Yes, good, thanks.
All the pubs in Watford are shutting, Nick.
Are they?
Yeah. Obviously, you wouldn't know this. Sort of living in probably Surrey or wherever. But I think it's a conspiracy, Nick, to keep people indoors.
Now, when you say they're shutting, do you mean they're closing for business forever?
Yes.
Right.
It's a really good one to know. And they've tried to get hold of the local MP, who happens to be a Tory, but he's not replying or answering to any questions, or he's just pointing. I reckon he's with Boris.
Right.
I don't really care about it, but I didn't vote for him anyway. But I mean, it's just scandalous. I think they're trying to keep people indoors, Nick.
Well, it occurs to me. I mean, I'm not a big pub person. They're okay. No. But I wouldn't overnight deliberately go out just to go to a pub. If one happens to be on the way to where I'm going, then I might pop in, But having done that a few times lately, it is quite alarming how much drink costs now. I mean, I know we should drink less of it, but are they trying to actually price us out of the market?
Well,
I ordered. Hang on a minute. I ordered two. If you order a pint of lager, it's not surprising to be charged 13 quid for the pleasure for 2 pints, which seems. I mean, that's two people having 2 rounds, 2 pints each, and you spent £26. That just seems too much, doesn't it?
In the pub, the Wetherspoons just $2.29 per pint.
Right. Well, I don't go into Wetherspoons. I just don't.
Try it, mate.
No,
Try
I'm not going. I refuse to do that. No, I won't do it.
Why?
Because of his hair. I'm just. It freaks me out.
Give it a bash.
No, I won't. I don't want to, and you can't make me. I went into a pub the other day in Norwich. 2 gin and tonics was 26 quid.
What?
£26 in a pub.
Well, don't buy them then.
Well, that is an alternative. Yep, don't buy them then. But for 26 quid, you could get a pretty good bottle of gin and a bottle of tonic, and you could sit at home and,
Yeah, but you've missed the point of my call. But they're trying to keep us indoors. I mean, like, MPs aren't answering anybody about anything.
Mm.
It's very strange behaviour.
Right. So you think that this is a conspiracy by the government, allied to the breweries, to keep people indoors by whacking up the prices in pubs?
Right. I mean, the shops are too dear if there's any food in them anyway.
Right.
It's not normal. There used to be 30 pubs down Watford High Street. And
30?
They're getting less and less. Yeah.
Well,
getting less and less.
That does seem to make no sense to me, but, it's dark now, it's cold out, it's raining. The people are going to stay in anyway for the next 5 months. You have to get used to being indoors for, like, freezing cold with no electricity, staring at the mould on the wall for the next 5 blooming months.
I talk to my cat. I know you don't like him, but I talk to my cat. It's nice, but he must have the option, Nick. You know
that is completely incorrect in every respect. I like cats. I grew up with cats. I've never had a dog, but I kind of like dogs too, depending on what kind of dog it is. I mean, not yappy dogs. Why anybody would want one of them? It just blows my mind. Why would you want one of them? But like a proper dog, great. And I love cats, as long as cats love me.
Are you saying to me, Nick, you've never been into Wetherspoons?
I have done, but only by accident.
By accident?
Well, I didn't know it was what it was from the outside. That's all.
Anyone looks down on their nose, Nick, and I don't know why that is. It's really good.
It's his hair, Steve. Trust me. Well, exactly right. It's just a little bit freaky. That man's hair, I can't live with it.
Which man?
The Wetherspoons man.
Oh, him. But he's not in there working on the bar, Nick.
Well, it is an ever-present danger. It just might happen one of these days, and I refuse to put myself through that. I just won't do it. Thanks a lot, Steve. Got to go. 0345 6060 973. I'm amazed that pubs can still do business. I just don't get it. How are they making a profit with the amount of money that they charge for an ordinary drink? Who's going in there anymore? £6. I mean, I was charged last year. I went into a fancy hotel just down from here, and they've got a bar next to a restaurant where they just serve, meat. It was a manly man's restaurant. They had a bar there, and it was good beer. It really was. But it was £7.50 a pint. £7.50, and I thought that was absolutely outrageous. But I then thought, well, you know what? You're paying for the heating and the lighting and the staff and the hotel. There's this massive room and the big, chandeliers and all that sort of stuff. So it's not just the pint that you're paying for. It's all that extra folderol that goes along with it. But not in a pub. Not really. It's just a room with a wooden floor that smells a bit, with a toilet that as you stand at the urinal, you're up to your ankles in other people's, product.
Disgusting.
And they still charge $6.50 for a pint of lager. It's just I don't understand that as a business prospect. Don't get it. How are they still open? Now, last night I was talking about Alexa. Oh, by the way, the podcast of last night's show is not up yet. And it's not my fault. Got nothing to do with me. It's not my job. It was like that when I got here. But it will be. And yesterday I was telling you how to get it on Alexa because it's only on Global Player now. You see, we take the news in the... There's not much point in me saying it because last night's is not up there. But many other shows are up there. So maybe there is a point. You take on your behalf, take the news and the ads out, which means it takes less time to listen to. You'll use less electricity, save money. And in a few short years, you still will not have saved up enough for a half of lager at your local pub. It's only on Global Player now. If you download Global Player from your favourite app store, then you'll find it on that. Nick Abbot, The Whole Show podcast. Or you can use it on or you can get it on your stupid smart speaker. Now, I was telling you how to do this last night. And the magic phrase is you say, or whatever your speaker is called. I'm not going to say it out loud because it'll make them burst into life. Play, open Global Player and play Nick Abbott, The Whole Show podcast. That is the magic phrase. Open a Global Player and play Nick Abbott, The Whole Show podcast. And then it will play last night's when it goes up there, or any one previously. But anyway, on that subject, Marion texted yesterday, I think this thing with presenters explaining how to use Alexa is a bit like when the internet got to be a thing and people would say, go to https://www.mycompany.co.uk/prize game/register. We don't do that anymore, but I can remember that we used to. And it occurred to me then that the person that invented the internet, it was Tim Watson. He could have called it anything, but he called it the World Wide Web. World Wide Web, which, apart from anything else, is difficult to say because your mouth sort of gets tired about halfway through it. The World Wide Web, which, of course, we shortened to www, which is a letter that has 3 syllables. W. It's the only letter in the alphabet that has more than 1 syllable. It's got 3, and there's 3 of them. And you add the dot on the end, and you've used 10 syllables before you've even told anybody what the website address is. That seemed like a lack of genius on his part. How he did not figure that out, Tim Watson, is a mystery to me. Because, like I said, he could have called it anything. It was his blooming invention. Thanks a lot, Tim Watson. See what you've done?
Thank you.
I called the Dart people, the Dart charge people today. I'll tell you what happened later. I'm not completely satisfied, but it's an ongoing issue. But you know me, I never complain about anything.
Whinging and whining and moaning.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with Nick Abbott.
Are you trying to be funny? Because I'm all out of laughs.
There is nothing funny about it. This one says, same old lefty woke reportage from Nick Abbott, spelt wrong. Matt Hancock is doing I'm a Celebrity to promote the dyslexia cause. It's nothing to do with promoting his book or collecting a cheque for £400,000. Give Matt a chance. His record during COVID speaks for itself, says Brian in Birmingham, who I believe is being sarcastic. Some texts and tweets from last night now. This says, the Dart charge is a money-making scam. Once built, we were told no more charges. Guess what? They lied, says Linda in Kent. Liar! Well, you know what? I don't mind paying £2.50 to cross a bridge, because how else are you going to get over the other side? Swim? £2.50 doesn't seem unreasonable. I mean, even if you did it twice a day, it's still not completely unreasonable, is it? I mean, that's a fiver. I was actually quite surprised at how little it was, £2.50. I mean, I would have expected £6 quid. I wouldn't have been surprised if it had been £6. But I did take great umbrage at the fact that I was going to get fined what I believed was 150 quid for not knowing what the rules were, the regulations. And so I called him up. And I only did that because people last night were telling me to do just that. Don't worry about it, Nick, they said. You'll get let off, they said. Just call them up, they said. Now, I didn't believe this, and I had, given up before I even started, and because I just predicted they would just laugh at me down the phone. Laughing at me. Oh, well, that's no excuse, not knowing what the rules are. That kind of thing. But he said that as you are a newbie, I gave him my driving car license plate thing. The driving car license plate thing. And they said, I have detected that you used it for the first time. That's right. Correct amundo. He said, in that instance, we normally let you off the fine and just charge you the £2.50 that you would have charged had you known what the regulations were. So I thought, well, blimey, that's great. And he said, so what's your penalty charge number? And I said, I don't know, I haven't got it yet. And plus, you probably sent it to my old address because I've just moved. And he said, so I can't let you pay the charge until you've got the penalty charge number. I said, right, okay, well, can you just give that to me? He said, oh, no. No. I cannot give you the charge number. I said, well, it might not get to me before the charge doubles. Because you've got to pay the fine before a certain amount of time or it doubles. They put it around the other way, that if you pay it within a certain amount of time, then you get half off. But that's not the way to look at it at all. It's that if you don't pay it within a certain amount of time, it doubles, because that's what's happening. And so it probably won't get to me at my new address until until the bailiffs are on my door trying to take the car away that I used to get through the Dartford blooming tunnel. And so I said, well, okay, so can you not just give me the number? He said, no. He said, you got to call back next week. Right. So I said, so I've got to call back next week for you to give me the number on the phone. He said, yes, that's right. I said, but why can't you just give it to me now? He says, oh, no, I can't do that. So I've got to remember now to call them next week to ask for the blooming number that they could have given me on the phone today so that I can get the fine rescinded so I can pay my £2 blooming 50 to go in the blooming Dartford tunnel. But you know me, I never complain.
Whinging and whining and moaning.
So, the saga continues. God, look at that switchboard tonight. I know you're out there. I've seen the numbers. You're all going out to the fireworks, aren't you? It's a terrible night to see the fireworks. Plus, at first it's all ooh and ah, and then comes the running and the screaming. This tweet says, when you say photo ID for voting impinges on Democrat and Labour voters, this is, I was banging on last night about photo ID, how it's fixing a problem that doesn't exist, in an attempt to dissuade people who might not vote Conservative or Republican in America, because this is where this idea comes from, America, of course. It's one of the Donald Trump's cohort's little schemes.
Oh, shut up!
And because that's what we're getting over here now. It says, when you say photo ID for voting impinges on Democrat and Labour voters, what you really mean, and what most of the world understands, is that illegals and those not on the electoral register will be scuppered. Oh, well, job done, 3 exclamation marks. Okay, first of all, what's an illegal? If you mean the people coming over here and taking our votes, they're not voting illegally. And neither, by the way, are they arriving illegally. But let's not get into that right now. We could get into it later. It's fixing a problem that doesn't exist. So you have to wonder, why are they doing it? If the problem of illegal voting of voter fraud does not exist, then why are they spending so much time and effort in trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist? What might the reason be? This is the story in The Guardian. It says a series of major changes to UK elections, including but not limited to voter ID and an imminent revamp of Commons constituencies, is leaving electoral administrators overwhelmed and risks bringing chaos to polling stations. Officials and opposition parties have warned. Well, that sounds more like the plan, doesn't it? Final Commons boundary changes being announced next week for England and Scotland will automatically take effect for any subsequent general election, requiring vast efforts to allocate officials and polling stations to the redrawn constituency map. Would anybody like to take a small bet with me that those redrawn maps favour the Conservatives? More pressing, it says, is a law that will require all voters to show photographic identification to cast a vote, beginning with the local elections in England next May. Now, if this is not an intention to stop those that might not vote Conservative from voting, just throw a net over them, and the more you can dissuade, then the better it will be. Then I am a Knickerbocker glory with cream on top. The Electoral Commission and the Association of Electoral Administrators, which represents election staff, say there is minimal time remaining to introduce voter ID, with details of how the system will work in practice yet to be published. In other words, the government has said, well, we insist that you do this. And they say, well, how are we going to do that then? And the government goes, oh, I don't know. You just work it out yourself. Voter ID will apply to all subsequent English and UK parliamentary elections. They've managed to get this in. I can't believe it. And Labour has opposed voter ID. Wow, they've actually come out with a strong opinion on something. Can you believe that?
No.
So I looked up the Electoral Commission, and on their website it says, we take the risk of electoral fraud very seriously. It says, throughout the year, all police forces across the UK send us data about allegations of electoral fraud that they receive and investigate. Every year we report on the number, type and outcome of these allegations. Well, let's have a little look then, shall we? The UK, it says, has low levels of proven electoral fraud. And by low, it means practically non-existent. In 2017, one conviction. In 2018, there was, it says, no evidence of large-scale electoral fraud. Of the 266 cases that were investigated by the police, one led to a conviction. So in 2017, there was one conviction. In 2018, one conviction. In 2019, out of the local elections that were held that year, the national parliamentary elections, the European parliamentary elections, the local by-elections, the mayoral elections and the police commissioner elections, there were 4 convictions. 2020 was lockdown year, and 2021, the number of cases of fraud leading to prosecution, 0. So there is no problem. So why are they trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist? Could it be the same reason their ideas factory, the Republican Party in the US, has introduced voter ID, which was to deny the vote to the young and the poor, who are less likely to have photo ID, so as to depress the vote for the Democrats in America, who would normally get those votes. And so similarly in this country, for those who might be more inclined to vote Labour. It's also what would Donald Trump do?
Everything that I've done is 100% proper. That's what I do, is I do things proper.
0345 6060 973. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbot, LBC.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbot.
This guy is sick. There's something wrong with this guy.
Hi, honey. How are you?
I'm super. Thanks for asking. 0345 6060 973. Sir Gavin Williamson. I mean, if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about the honour system in this country, then I don't know what does. The entire thing needs to be taken apart to its constituent molecules and then stamped into the ground. Hands up who's with me. This says, I remember once thinking that Uxbridge Road led to Uxbridge, and then I eventually realised that Uxbridge Road is Uxbridge, says Dave in London. Well, that's unfair to Uxbridge, but true. Now, I can't say this next name out loud because it's going to make your device burst into action, but it's Alexa, says, I'm trying to think of the last time the government made an actual good and big impact on the economy. Or maybe that's them asking Alexa that question. Can you imagine if your name was actually Alexa and every time somebody called you, everyone's device all around, burst into action? No, I'm sorry, I can't help you with that. Idiot. Lewisham. Hello, Jane.
Hello, Nick.
Hello, Jane.
Right. Shall I tell you how to stay warm in your home and never put the heating on?
Go to somebody else's home?
No. You know what I mean? Mind you, it is a nuisance. It shouldn't be like this at all. Right.
I have the answer.
But
I have the answer.
You have to wear.
I have the answer. I have the answer. I have the answer. I have the answer.
Right.
Well, ask me what the answer is.
What is the answer, Nick?
Do I have to tell you everything? The answer is a heated blanket. A heated blanket.
No, Nick. You have to use the electric for that.
Well, it's only a little bit of electric.
No, that doesn't really work.
It does, though. It really, really works. Trust me.
An electric blanket?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're not. But you're
Yes.
you're walking around your home.
Oh no, you have to stay still. You can't you can't walk around. You can't walk around with an electric blanket on. You're plugged into the wall. I mean, you could do it with a really long extension lead, I suppose. But no, I'm telling you, they are the answer. If you haven't got yourself an electric blanket, get one straight away, if not sooner.
I see, but you can't walk around then.
No. Well, why would you be walking around your own home? Just find a place to sit and just stay still.
But you have to walk around.
Well, every now and again when you get up from the TV during the commercial break to go and make yourself a nice cup of tea.
Yes,
Yeah.
for lots and lots of reasons. Mind you, one thing that does make you warm is hoovering. I don't know what about hoovering. If you really are cold, get the hoover out.
Yeah.
But, right, when it gets really cold...
Vigorous scrubbing will do it too.
When you walk in your home, right, when you walk in
your home.
Right. Yes, when it gets really cold. The first thing you put on is a balaclava, right, because you must not breathe in the cold air of your home. That is essential.
What are you wearing?
Right,
are you wearing the balaclava back to front? It's got a hole for your mouth.
Yeah, but you cover your nose, don't you? You cover your nose. All you see is your eyes. And that keeps you. Then you put on your house coat. Mm-hmm. Then you put on your ski celopats or ski trousers. They are lovely and warm. I've got them on now. Wow. They are just beautiful.
What a sight you are painting for us. It's horrifying.
A warm sight. And then
So you basically dress up like a bank robber. That's what you're saying, isn't it? Like a bank robber in Zurich or something like
and then
the
you
Swiss
put
Alps.
on your walking shoes with wool socks and gloves, and you can run around the house, but you're just absolutely warm, and you just do not put on the heating at all.
Right, and nor really dressed like that should you answer the door to anybody. That would be my recommendation to you, Jane.
You do.
No, don't do it. Don't even think about it. You know, you would look fantastic with wearing a balaclava round back to front. Do you mind if I say that? Good advice there, Jane. Thanks for passing that on. Trust me, it's a heated blanket.
Affirmative.
That's what you want to get yourself. I am totally sold on them. And you can be sitting in a freezing cold room, but you're underneath that thing and you're watching TV and you've got a little mug of cocoa by your side.
Booze.
Or whatever. a heated blanket. It is the answer to your problems. Believe me when I tell you. 0345 6060 973. North Carolina. Hello, Graham.
Nick, if you're in bed, you need a mattress, an electric mattress pad to be underneath you.
Underneath, yeah.
Hey, how is it that young people and old people cannot get picture ID? Why is it so difficult for them to do that?
No, it's not difficult for them. It's not difficult for them to do it. It's that they are just less likely to have one in the first place.
Why?
Because they're less likely to have a car. They're less likely to have gone abroad, particularly in America, where people don't really go abroad much. They're less likely to have a passport. They're just younger people and poorer people are less likely to have photo IDs.
Yeah, but here you got to have an ID to do anything. The bank, the beer, the cigarettes, everything.
Yeah, that's true. Well, a driving license,
every single place you go, you got to show an ID.
An ID. Yeah, that's true. Not so here. We don't really do that now. Or
no, you don't do that.
Up to this point, but we will shortly.
Now, can I talk about immigration?
Okay.
You have the horrendous number of 40,000, I think, that have come in on the rubber dinghies, and we've had 4 million that have come in through flying them. And Brits ought to do that. They want to come to the United States. Just fly to Mexico City and walk across.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a piece of cake. Now, what would happen if
that is if you want to spend the rest of your life tending somebody else's yard for a living?
Well, okay.
Yeah.
My dad did that when he came over in the 20s. Lost my train of thought. That's terrible. Right. I had so many things to say.
Well, you've got to make notes, Graham. Otherwise, you will.
I generally do.
Embarrass yourself.
One of the things that I wanted to talk about earlier this morning was the rhetoric when Simon Marks was over here and one of the other presenters was talking to somebody, and they were talking about the rhetoric, how horrible the rhetoric was about Sunak helicopters and using terms of endearment to express the situation that you have there.
Not endearment, the opposite of that.
That's true, right? Well,
it's a wave. It's an invasion. That kind of thing.
Invasion. That's right. The invasion term. That's right. Well, it seems to me that gins up stuff just as bad as what happens on the right. I mean, election deniers. We have Stacey Abrams in Georgia. She's never admitted that she lost to Kemp back in the previous election.
Well, I think there's something like 150. I can't remember the exact number, but it's like 150 or more Republicans who are running for office have said that they will refuse to accept the results of the vote unless they win.
Talk's cheap. And then James Clyburn in South Carolina goes, if you vote conservative, you're a Nazi. I mean, what kind of rhetoric is that? That guy said that. He said in 1939, Germany had the best government going, the most democratic government going until Hitler became the chancellor. And then now, if you vote Republican, you're a Nazi. That's nice talk.
Well, I've a question for you, Graham, in North Carolina. Why is there a North Carolina and a South Carolina? What's the difference between the two? Why do you get two states in Carolina?
Well, because we're trying to catch up to North Dakota and South Dakota.
Exactly. Yes. Why do they get two states? In North Dakota and South Dakota, you've got three people and a cow.
You'd have to go back to the before, back when we left you guys and figure that one out, because Georgia is obviously named after King George, and I'm sure that South Carolina and North Carolina split off from either Virginia or Georgia. You hate history, so I won't go into that.
History?
Boring.
Anyway,
thanks for taking my call.
Okay,
really
thanks for making
your
call, Graham. It's been educational. 0345 6060 That is a puzzler, ain't it? Because each state in America gets a representative in I'll get this right way around, the Senate. The other one, which is the House of Representatives, they have the number of representatives that would equate to the number of people living in that state. So California gets more, and North Dakota would get less. But I think in the Senate, each state, regardless of how many people live there, even if nobody lives there at all, which is the case in North Dakota, that's just a fact, look it up, each state gets 2 senators. So, which means that the unpopulated states have far more power than the populated ones. Because if California and New York State, for instance, have the exact same number of senators as North and South Dakota, which are completely uninfested with people, then the people in North and South Dakota have as much power as hundreds, well, not hundreds, but tens of millions of people in the states where, business gets done and people make money. It's just a completely screwed up system over there, and I am so glad that America exists because it takes the heat off us from being the laughing stock of the world. Not that any particular person has a responsibility for that.
I'm president. Can you believe it?
I'm just saying.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with Nick Abbot.
Right, so what are we doing?
Given we are doing a radio show, but it does remind me that I do a podcast with Carol McGiffin.
Yeah.
In which we try to solve people's problems while guffawing like seals. The podcast is called What's Your Problem with Nick and Carol? Now, if you want us to have a bash at your issue, you have a problem that you want us to solve, then send it to the following address. nickandcarol@global.com. nickandcarol@global.com, and prepare to be totally satisfied. Ask for it by name on an internet near you. What's your problem with Nick and Carol? And the email address again is nickandcarol@global.com. It's on Global Player, and wherever else you get your podcasts. I can recommend Global Player. It's totally free. You can download it from iTunes or the other one, Android.
Affirmative.
And the podcast, What's Your Problem with Nick and Carol, comes out on Mondays. It is a laugh. I think you'll love it.
Oh, right, yeah.
Let's have Belsize Park. Judy.
Hello.
Judy.
I know you never listen to your own programme, but you're talking about photo ID and being concerned about it for voting.
Mm-hmm.
I warned you before the last council elections. I don't know whether you did it or not. I forgot to check. When you go in and they give you your ballot paper, each ballot paper has a number on the back. And that ballot paper number is unique to you, like a raffle ticket, and they record it against your number on the electoral roll.
It goes on your permanent record?
Well, when they tip all the boxes out, up the place where they sort them, they can look at the number on the back of the ballot paper and check that against the electoral roll list and know exactly who voted for who.
Oh, well, that means that on my permanent record, I have voted for the wrong people.
Oh, no.
Well, I warn this. I phone up. I used to ring Clive Bull every time before a vote, and everybody said I was neurotic, and I got thrown out the polling station, and none of my family would ever come with me to vote because I always queried it.
Well, what did they say? When you queried it, what did they say?
They said they would call the person in charge, and the person in charge came and said I should contact the electoral, whatever they're called, and threw me out the polling station. But I completely forgot to ask you, because you said before the last council elections, you said you would check when they hand you your ballot paper.
Right.
You would look on the back.
I forgot.
You forgot?
Yeah.
Okay. But I am told, or I've been told, as long as I've been voting, that I am totally neurotic.
You've been told to get out and not come back.
Yeah. But they've also told me it's to do with preventing fraud. And when I say, how does it prevent fraud, they don't know.
Yes,
and when I ask
calling
them
for
how
security.
many and also I ask how many instances of fraud have they found,
0.
they won't tell me.
Yeah. Well, I've just told you what the Electoral Commission said.
Yes.
They put a note out every year detailing how much fraud has been found to have been committed, and usually the answer is 0 or a number adjacent to it.
Yes. The only time I think you can be concerned about fraud is perhaps when you're doing a postal vote and you ask somebody, perhaps if you're in hospital or in a care home or something, and you ask somebody to put who you want, put your cross where you want it.
Yeah.
And they put it somewhere else.
Right.
But anyway, will you try and remember next time there is a council election?
Judy, I can promise you that I will try and remember to do it, which means that I probably will forget to do it.
But we might get a general election sometime,
yes.
But that will be so far off that you'll have forgotten.
I most certainly will, yeah. But I could be going into the polling booth as you get chucked out. So we could say hi to each other briefly in passing as you fly out head first from the inside.
But you don't live round this way anymore,
No,
do you?
I don't. No, Belsize Park. I can only dream of living in Belsize Park. Are you kidding?
You used to, but you keep moving because you told us not... Sorry, I'm taking up all your time.
That's all right.
Not very long ago, you told us before that you'd moved, and now you've moved again.
I know. I'm on the run from the law.
Ah, I thought it sounded a bit suspicious.
Now, I'm curious about how you get chucked out of a polling station, because the people inside the polling station are usually nice little old ladies. So how did they manhandle you to the door?
I am one, but I'm not a nice little old lady. No. I'm just a horrible little old lady. They sit outside and they ask for my card.
Right.
To prove, to tick me off that I've been in to vote, which is none of their business.
They want to see your papers?
Yes. And then, God help anybody outside who's doing an exit poll and asks me how I voted.
Oh, yeah, those people.
But also, I'm still campaigning for a none of the above box.
I think you can write in a none of the above. You can put your own box on there and just tick that.
Yeah, but then they count that as a spoiled paper.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
I want it read out at the count.
None of the above. I think that's a good idea, actually.
Yes. But I mentioned this to you once before, but you don't remember.
No.
But you said none of the above would probably get more votes than anybody else, and then they'd have to go back and do it again.
Well, quite possibly, yeah. What if none of the above won?
Yes.
And there wasn't a none of the above candidate?
We had 1 year. We had a none of the above. We were the only ones to have it at our polling station,
right.
And they were all dressed as nuns. And they were called the none of the above party.
Of the above. I get it. That's cute.
Yeah, and they were in costume outside our polling station.
Do you remember when Nigel Farage lost to a man in a dolphin suit?
I'm a nutcase.
Well, we haven't got the monster raving loonies anymore, have we?
Well, I'm not sure that's true. Yeah, not the party, but I think we've got people that fit that description, most certainly.
Well, they changed their name to the official monster raving loonies because they said otherwise they're going to think it's them when it isn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
It might be him, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, or her.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Or this one.
And one.
That guy. Or this one.
My name's Dominic Raab, and I'm a Tory.
I mean, there's just no end of them.
Calm down.
Right, I'll go back and listen to you now.
It's exhausting, isn't it, Judy?
It is. The whole of life is exhausting now. It's not real.
You know what you want to do? Have a nice sit down with a heated blanket. Trust me, Judy. Believe me when I tell you.
On a very long lead.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. All right, thanks for that. 0345 6060 973. You could have a heated blanket attached to a portable generator, and then you just carry that around. Simple. This one says, I joined telephone banking for the first time in 2020, and every single time I've rung up to conduct a bank transfer, the message starts by saying, you've called at an unusually busy time. I'm thinking of asking my bank, when is the usual non-busy time? I haven't found it yet, says Terry from Fleet. Every single time I have called anybody, any institution of any kind, lately, that's exactly the phrase that I first hear. Like it's my fault. Oh, I've called it an unusually busy time. Stupid me. We are experiencing more than usual calls. You may have to wait a long time. We are very sorry about that. Liar! No, you're not. If you were very sorry about it, you would have done something about it already. Like use some of the billions of pounds of free profit that you've been making lately to actually pay someone to answer the blooming phone for you. Someone, and I know this sounds like a revolutionary concept, someone that is in this country, who you can hear because the line is clear, and whose accent is not so thick you'd need to chop through it with a machete. But no, they just play that message. Rather than fixing the problem, they just tell you that there is a problem, and it doesn't matter when you call them, it's always the same. You have called at an unusually busy time. We are experiencing more calls than normal. What's normal when it's at home? I am unfamiliar with normal.
I am very sorry that I screwed up. Totally I mean, I am so sorry. You just don't know how sorry I am. I'm sorry.
That wasn't the one I was going for. I just missed the one I was going for. Just ever so slightly. But that sort of fits. I apologise for calling at an unusually busy time. When would be a usually unbusy time? They can't tell you because it does not exist. Your wait time is expected to be between 45 and 1 hour.
What?
Yeah. An hour to wait on the phone. Paying them, of course, to wait on the phone because they use one of those numbers that makes them money, which is highly suspicious for a start. And you sit there waiting, listening to the same blooming tune over and over and over again. Oh, I can't stand it. They just want you to give up and go away. Which I refuse to do, because then they will have won. On that subject, this says, Nick, I keep getting messages from my energy supplier saying you haven't submitted a reading in months when I'm up to date. When I complained, the guy on the phone said it's a ploy for you to call them, for them to offer you a smart meter upgrade or to take part in a survey. It was probably his last day because he was bluntly honest with me, says Adam in Slough. Yeah, he just couldn't take it anymore. I feel his pain.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott.
This is absolute tosh.
0345 6060 973. Doncaster. Hello, Maria.
Hello, Nick.
Maria.
I just want to talk about an infrared heater.
An infrared heater?
Yes. I bought one for £35 of a very well-known site.
Yeah.
And it keeps me very warm. It heats the objects directly. Me.
Right. You.
And
now, is that one of those heaters that gives off a really bright light?
Yes.
Right.
But the thing is, you can run it for 11 hours a day on high for a year for £100.
Blimey.
So it's really, really cost efficient.
Now, it's one of those heaters that doesn't blow, like you use it outside, right? Because the heat doesn't blow away with the wind.
It doesn't blow.
Yeah.
You can put it on a sort of a thing where it goes left and right.
Yeah.
I just have it with me, and you know, you can move it from room to room. It's lightweight. It doesn't cost very much. I mean, for me, who lives in a house on my own, I could just move it from room to room and keep myself warm.
Well, that sounds like a good idea. Have you ever tried a heated blanket?
No, I don't want one.
Oh.
I really don't. And you know what, Nick?
What?
You're not therefore you're not a postmenopausal woman, therefore you don't get night sweats. So, you know, I wouldn't want it in my bedroom, but I want it when I'm up and about.
Yeah. I get that. Well, stay warm, Maria. Thanks for that. Infrared heating. I did have one of those, but the light that came off it was just a bit too bright for me. That's just my personal opinion. But thanks, Maria. 0345 6060 973. This one says, sadly, I find the only way to get a response from these companies these days is to voice your complaint publicly on social media. It shouldn't be that way, but it seems that's the only way that works. Well, I know people who do that. I haven't done that myself because, I don't know, I felt a bit like I shouldn't do that, like abusing my position. But I know people that do that a lot, and often the company will get right back, toot sweet. In fact, I work with a person that does exactly that.
Yeah.
Every time she gets insufficient respect on an airline, for instance, she lets them know in no uncertain terms.
Whinging and whining and moaning.
And they usually get straight back to her. So maybe that's a thing. Social media. Hey, what happens when... if that crank who's bought Twitter, he wants, what is it, 7 or 8 quid, something like that, for a blue tick. What happens if you don't give him it? What happens then? I'm curious. Putney. Oh, no, wait a minute. I've messed that up. There it is. And by it, I mean Joan. Hello, Joan.
Hi, Nick. I'm just ringing to agree with the lady that called in about the voting a few minutes ago.
Oh, yeah.
I totally agree with everything she said.
Well, you've seen a number on the back that goes on your permanent record and they can tell who you voted for.
Yes. And the other thing that I always do is I always tell people, always vote. Even if you spoil the paper... Mm-hmm. Or you just write on it, none of the above.
Yes.
Always vote.
Always.
Because once the polling station shuts, they've got a list of who hasn't voted because they tick you off.
That's true.
Now, I'm not stupid. I'm not stupid enough to say that fraud goes on.
Yeah.
But I'm cracking on a bit. I've been round the block. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust a lot of people in high places.
I wouldn't trust any of them. I wouldn't trust any of them to walk my dog, and I don't even have a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm exactly the same, and that's what I always say to people: always vote, because if you vote, your tick has been put against your name, and yet they can't be used.
Mm.
So that's just me being. Maybe I'm neurotic like that. People say she is. But
these are neurotic times, Joan, and if you think it's a conspiracy, then
it probably is.
It probably is.
Yes, I'm pretty cynical about a lot of things, but I think there's an awful lot to be cynical about.
Exactly.
So, there you go.
Well spotted there, Joan. Keep your nose clean.
No probs.
All right.
Yeah.
Cheers, my
Take
dear.
care.
Ta-da. 0345 6060 973. Yeah, people will receive things, information like that and go, bah, they're not going to do anything with that. No, this is Britain. Nothing like that could ever happen here. Oh, yes, it could. Oh, yes, it could. This tweet says, the whole country's gone bonkers. Heard economic experts this week saying the Bank of England has to raise interest rates to create a recession and raise unemployment to bring down inflation. Says Paul from beautiful Slough. Now, maybe it's because I'm an idiot, but I don't understand what the Bank of England is doing. It seems like the opposite of what it should be doing to me. I just don't get it. So what they're doing is, in order to stop inflation, they're trying to make people spend less money and get them to save money instead. And the way to do that is to raise the interest rates. Because if you're going to spend money, then their thought is that you will be borrowing it. So it will make people borrow less and save more because you get higher interest rates. And they do that because in a period of high inflation, they think that that's caused by people spending too much. Too many people want too much stuff, and so the price of stuff goes up. If 10 people all want the same biscuit, then the price of that biscuit will go up. I mean, that doesn't necessarily have to happen, but that's just greed is what that is. And if there's something you can rely on people being, it's greedy. So that's the idea, apparently. So they raise the interest rates to stop people spending so much money so that they will keep the money that they've got and they'll save it. That is what they would ordinarily do in normal times. But these aren't normal times.
Correct.
So the problem is that we have inflation, but it's not caused by the normal thing because people haven't got any money. We ain't got no money to save. We're not going out there spending money like a drunken sailor, buying up stuff that we don't need with money we ain't got, and borrowing to furnish that spending spree. We can't afford the gas and the electricity. The problem that they're trying to solve is not the normal one, but they're trying to solve it in the normal way, which seems to be, to my mind, making it worse. Because people haven't got any money, and so they're making it more expensive to borrow money, which means that the people who haven't got any money are now in a worse position than they were before, not a better one. The Bank of England seems to be making it worse, not better. Am I losing my mind, or does that, is what they're doing make no sense? Or both. Or both. 0345 6060 973. Croydon. Hello, Terry.
Hello,
Terry.
I just wanted to push the voting thing a bit more.
Yes.
But they're both definitely correct. The vote isn't valid if there's not the number on the back, and that's when you see them all counting the votes. That's what they come in and check to see that all the votes are valid.
Right.
But the thing is, when they count them, they put them into piles of parties.
Yeah.
And there's been concern for a number of years that if the books, which the guys, which the people on the desk have, are not kept separately from the counted ballots,
yes,
it has been possible for police and special branch and that type of people to go in and very quickly take. If you've got a small party, which is a bit out there, they can find out straight away who's voted for it. And
right, like the Labour Party, you mean? They can find out if people have made the wrong decision and not voted with the Conservative Party.
Well, yeah, possibly. It'd take a bit of time. I don't think the police.
Oh, they've got all the time in the world. Don't you worry about that.
But if it's like one of the communist parties or one of the
Monster Raving Loony Party or the Nazi Party, one of those.
Well, if people are voting for it, and the guidelines say you're meant to keep the books separately. Yeah,
meant.
But generally,
meant to.
People just throw them in the back of the cupboard.
Well, so the person who is in charge of the book is a 70-year-old nice little lady. She's not. What is she going to do? Wrestle the book away from some bloke in riot gear? No. Not that I'm saying that any of that actually happens, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did.
Well, because they're kept for 5 years, I think it is.
Right. 5 years, or
they're different. They're there so that if somebody says, "Oh, well, I think this is false," they can go and actually look at the ballots. But like I said, on the night, people are checking them, so I don't think there's so much, loads of ballots coming in without being marked.
Well, that's right.
But people are very surprised. I got told it at school. This is years ago by the English master. Yeah, we were all quite surprised, but he didn't seem to think it would matter. He was like, who's going to bother doing that?
Yeah, right. No, it won't matter until it matters, and then it'll be too late. All right. Thanks for the bad news, Terry. Cheers, mate. 0345 6060 973. This one says, Nick, the country is in such a crisis that a 20-year-old professional footballer was found guilty of poaching for hares. Are we going back to the Victorian age? Says James. Yes, we are. It's the workhouse for you, mate.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with Nick Abbot.
You're joking.
This says, Nick, I am snuggled under my heated blanket with 2 cats on top, taking advantage of the heat. And quite frankly, I am baking. I can't reach the controller to turn it down because I can't upset the cats sleeping. That's right. You don't own those cats. Those cats own you. This says, just tuned in. Have you talked about your bird yet? What bird? I ain't got no bird, Helen. And this one, balaclava, housecoat, ski pants and boots. If in reference to a call I had some while ago. Balaclava, housecoat, ski pants and boots. Radio has all the best pictures. Thank you, Jane, and I got them all in the right order, says Alice, for which you get extra points.
If you get it in order, you get extra points.
Extra points for getting it in order.
If you get it in order, you get extra points.
Extra points. Let's have, who's been waiting the longest? Oldbury, Ranjit.
Hiya, mate. Nick, you all right?
Yes, good, thanks. Are you frying tonight? Were you frying tonight? You have been frying,
yeah.
right. How's business?
I'm very quiet today, mate, because everybody's out at the bonfire, so it was steady.
Right.
You know, but we'll survive. It's going to be hard, but we'll survive. Right.
Have you ever had, hang on a minute, have you ever had fish and chips in Edinburgh?
No, the furthest north I've ever been is to Glasgow.
Right, well, that's about there.
Yeah.
There or thereabouts.
No, it's a bit further up, isn't it?
Perhaps, yeah. Well, a little bit, not much, but a
Mm.
tiny bit. Because in Edinburgh, they do not serve fish and chips with vinegar. They serve it with brown sauce. Have you ever had that?
No, I've had chips with brown sauce, but not fish with brown sauce. No,
It's not the kind of brown sauce. Not the kind of brown sauce that you're talking about. It's not that sort of unctuous, gooey sauce. It's it's liquid and watery.
Is it? I don't know. I've never heard of it. I'll have to look into it.
Trust me,
and do some
Ranjit.
homework.
You need to do homework because it's something that you could offer to your customers.
Yep. I can always look into that. Right. You know, regarding
You're not going to look into it, are you?
I am.
You're not. You're just brushing me off like I'm some sort of nut.
No, I'll have to look into it.
Okay,
Listen,
then.
you're my friend, you are, and you worry about people in my trade, and you worry about the poor people, which is good.
Okay.
You know? Yeah, you know, this voter ID and all that, right? This might be a back way of making everybody have ID cards, which they tried to do a few years ago, and there was such a backlash. That's one. And I agree with you, yes, because of poor people. I mean, how much does it cost to have a passport these days? Is it about £200?
No, if you want one straight away, it's I think it's like 100 and something, 125, something like that. If you want one immediately right now, it's an emergency. But I think if you're prepared to wait, I think it's like 75 quid or 80 or something like that.
So that's a lot of money, that is. So that's another thing. I've been to a count when they have the vote. You know, when they count after the election. Oh yeah. They can be traced back definitely because every one of them has got a barcode. I'm not sure, you know, like all the independent bodies would let a political party trace it. I reckon that, you know, the bureaucrats probably can't.
I would dispute that because it just very much depends. I mean, things happen today that you could not conceive as being possible yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it's like all them people, the Republicans, for example, in America, are saying we're not going to accept the vote, and somebody goes, hang on, what happens if you win? If you win, he goes, yep, I'll accept it.
Well, they've actually said that out loud. Over 100 Republican candidates for the upcoming elections have said, we will not accept the vote unless we win.
What's the point of having an election?
Isn't that incredible?
They're proper dinglings.
They
right?
really are. They are ding-a-lings.
Right, and are we allowed to talk about Gavin Williamson, or is that like a...
Well, it depends what you're going to say.
Well, I just want to know what was the contents of his message where he threatened other people. You know, was he, I'll scream.
Well, it wasn't necessarily a threat. It was just that he was a little bit rude, and it seemed a little inappropriate, particularly as he was messaging back and forth about being invited to the Queen's funeral. What business would he have being there?
Well, he's a sir now, isn't he? You know?
Yeah, which tells you everything you need to know. Like I said before, it tells you everything you need to know about the honours system in this country. Sir Gavin Williamson, do me a favour.
And the other subject that you've been talking about, hanging on the phone, for people. I mean, I think it was November the 1st, right? That new stuff for HMRC was going to have, all the changes about making tax digital.
Right.
Their site crashed. You can't ring them, right? But if you don't send them on time, they can fine you. So why can't we appeal against these fines, right? Because, in Birmingham years ago, they used all these Indian consulate, You'd queue up in one line for 2 hours. You get to the end, and if it was dinner time, they'd put the shutter down and say, come back tomorrow, right? Then you'd queue up once you've got your documents paid, then you got to queue literally in the next window for another 2 hours and say, can you just pass the money over to that person? No, you have to queue again. And they used to have a sign at the back. Lack of preparation on your behalf is not an emergency on our behalf. Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not joking. So I've been trying to ring up one of my gas companies, like 90 minutes I've been waiting, no answer. Then they says, we do now WhatsApp. So I send them a WhatsApp, About 4 days later, they says, have you still got your complaint? Right? And I went, yes. And that was about 2 weeks ago, and I've not received nothing else. But I was talking to your lovely producer. If you've got 200 people working in an office, and then all those 200 people are working from home, where does the delay come from?
Yeah, exactly. It seems like they've shed staff and are sort of ramping up the. If you abuse our staff in any way, shape, or form, we're going to hang up on you. And it seems to me that they do that anyway. They just sort of randomly pick somebody who's been hanging on the telephone like Blondie for an hour, and then they pick the phone up and then they put it down, and then that's that call answered and dealt with. That's one less digit that they've got staring at them on the wall.
Your nutcase friend, right? Mr. Farage, he's been going on about British jobs for British people.
Oh,
okay?
God.
Well, that one, half of these dinglings, right, don't understand. All those call centres that went to the Philippines and Mumbai and everywhere else, right? Those jobs have been offshored, right? So
just like all of our manufacturing jobs, they've been offshored as well. We used to make all sorts of things here, but we decided that we'd rather buy them on the cheap, made in China.
Okay, just jump in. We was the workshop of the world. Yeah. We still are the workshop that we make cars here, but they're all owned by foreign companies now. Which one of the car companies are owned by us? Because about 20 years ago...
I think it might be Morgan, and that's it.
Morgan, from Worcestershire, that's about it, right? But the thing is, what they want people to do is work in distribution warehouses, spend their money with certain supermarkets and buy their goods off a certain, have them delivered at home. And you're going to be cabbages sitting at home doing nothing because you're not going to have any kind of social interaction with people.
Now, does that make me, if that's what I want to do, sit at home and not have any interaction with other people and just sit there slumped in front of the TV, do I have to be described as a cabbage, or can it just be me relaxing and having a nice day?
No. I'm just sitting at home now, right, with a beer. I'm talking to you, but you're entertaining people. You're trying to wake people up, right? And the thing with people,
this is actually work. I'm going to have to cut this short, but this is actually working. Even though it's just talking, it might not seem like much, but this is actually very, very difficult.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbot.
Listen to him. He knows everything.
It's brown sauce and vinegar. We call it chippy sauce, says this anonymous messenger. That brown sauce that they use in Edinburgh. They don't do vinegar, they do brown sauce. Very, very, very sticky. Covered my school uniform from top to toe. This is, can you ask Ranjit why cod in batter floats to the top of the oil when cooked? I've been waiting weeks for the answer since it came up on your show, says Stephen in Cheltenham. I can answer that, Stephen. The answer is science. Science. Let's have Hartlepool. Alan.
Good evening.
Alan.
Reference the Bank of England in your previous comments on understanding why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
The present boss of what's his name? The boss of the Bank of England.
Mm-hmm.
He was appointed by Fishy Sunak.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe, if my memory serves me right, the governor of the Bank of England was originally a head of an investment bank that went bust.
I don't know. I have no information in that regard. I seriously doubt it. But what's your point?
But my point is that Fishy Sunak was the man who appointed him, and his record as Chancellor, to then appoint the governor of the Bank of England that has... Check it. I'm sure he had somewhere in the past he was in charge of an investment bank.
Are you talking about Fishy Sunak was in charge of an investment bank?
No. Fishy Sunak was Chancellor when he appointed the governor. And obviously the governor, in my opinion, is not fit for the post because of his past.
Well, I have no record or information of any kind about what it is that you just described. But so having no information, I'm going to assume it's not true. But thanks for passing that on, Alan. Rishi Sunak's record, I mean, let's just concentrate on that. He always whinnies on about how he saved us with his furlough scheme. Have you noticed? He just goes straight to that all the blooming time. You know, as though it was his money. And he was doing us a favour, rather than it was our money and he had no option but to keep the economy on life support while the mad bat disease passed over. He couldn't have done anything else to avoid total economic collapse. He wasn't being generous. He didn't have a choice. But he keeps telling us how great he did and that we should trust his judgment because of it. Do me a favour. Let's look at Mr. Integrity's record. On the furlough scheme, 9%, almost 1 in 10 of the pounds he doled out were taken fraudulently. £5.5 billion of Fishy Sunak's little scheme went to crooks. Now, when you start throwing around big numbers like that, it's a bit difficult to keep it in mind what that means. 5.5 billion, not million, billion. So I'll put it into too much blooming perspective. 1 million seconds is 12 days. Yeah, I'll do the seconds thing again. It gives you an idea of the magnitude between 1 million and 1 billion. 1 million seconds is 12 days. 1 billion seconds is 32 years. You know, if you had a pile of fivers and you wanted to make that pile £1 million, it would be about the height of a 6-storey building. If you had a pile of fivers and you wanted to make £1 billion, it would reach 14 miles. It's a lot. And Fishy Sunak's furlough scheme lost to fraud about a 14-mile-high stack of £5 notes. Gangsters, fraudsters, organised crime, all won. We lost. And that's his integrity calling card, the example he gives us to reassure us that we can trust his judgment. And then there was his eat out to help out. You know, apart from causing a spike in infections, as any dope could have predicted, 70 million quid of that went to fraud. 490 million pounds went missing under the self-employment income support scheme. And how many went to jail? How much was recovered? No one and nothing. 28,000 reported cases of potential fraud, and we're just supposed to shrug our shoulders and say, oh, well, never mind. Leave him alone. He's doing his best. I mean, the genius that came up with all that is now running this country. Fishy was also in charge of the nation's money, remember, when all those contracts were doled out for PPE. £100 million here for a company that's 2 weeks old and is run from a household kitchen. £100 million there for someone who has no experience of delivering medical equipment of any kind, but just so happens to be a large donor to the Conservative Party. Near enough £3 billion just vanished for something that the Tory government was told that we should have stocked up on years before the pandemic, but they did nothing till it was too late. So if you just add it all up, by my reckoning, Rishi Sunak has overseen near enough £10 billion of our money just vanish into the hands of crooks and conmen, and there's nothing that can be done about it, apparently. But we should trust him because, why? Because he isn't Liz Truss?
Absolutely.
Because he isn't Boris Johnson? Or because he wears a skinny tie and has soft focus shots taken of him stroking a dog on a sofa. You know, the Tory donor and hedge fund billionaire Guy Hands said that Britain's becoming the sick man of Europe and will be forced into a bailout from the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, unless Brexit is renegotiated. Guy Hands, founder of the private equity firm Terra Firma, long-time Conservative supporter. He launched an attack on the government over its handling of the economy. He said a string of mistakes over the last 6 years have put the UK on the path to becoming a sick man of Europe. And for half of those 6 years, Fishy Sunak has either been the Chief Secretary to the Treasury or the Chancellor of the Exchequer. He was the man in charge of our money. And he supported the Brexit deal, which Guy Hands said was the root cause of the current economic woes. He said failing to renegotiate the Brexit deal would mean the economy is, frankly, doomed, which doesn't sound good. I mean, it's quite a record that Fishy's got. Hard to believe that he actually draws attention to it, but he does. I suppose that's why he surrounds himself with people that distract the media and the public with their behaviour and the things they say, and it's the reason that he and his government seem bent on whipping up hatred for a small number of damp people with no possessions who wash up on our shores hoping for the kindness of strangers. Well, we're all out of kindness. Kindness doesn't win elections. Hatred wins elections. Demonising people wins elections. It's also less what would Jesus do and what would Donald Trump do.
Everything that I've done is 100% proper. That's what I do, is I do things proper.
He does things proper. 0345 6060 973. Hartlepool. Hello, Alan. Oh, no, I've done you already, haven't I? You can't call twice. Let's have Northwich. Alice.
Oh, hello, Nick.
Alice.
Sorry, thank you for taking my call. Yes, I mean, you're absolutely correct in all that you're saying about the economy. I do appreciate you reminding everybody about the fraud, because it's hardly ever spoken about. And I just wonder why. And I think it's because it's not very visual. So I think that's really good that you try and put it in visual terms, because people seem to have such short memories.
You throw big numbers like that around, and people's brains just close down. If you say billion, then people don't really know what that means. It sounds like it's a bit like a million, but I mean, is it a bit more, a little bit more, or a massive amount more? We don't really know, and people just get bored and they can't be interested anymore. It's something like £70 billion of our money has vanished, and you know the tax rises and the austerity that we're about to get is supposedly to fill a £50 billion hole in the economy. 70 billion went to fraud. If that hadn't happened, then we wouldn't have tax rises or austerity. He'd actually have the ability to dole out money.
Yeah, absolutely correct. And I mean, and the Treasury Lord absolutely resigned. I mean, any other time that would have been front page news for absolutely ages. And yet it went virtually unnoticed. Lord Agnew, I think it was last year, he was a Lord of the Treasury, no less, and he resigned, saying that £29 billion a year were going out of the Treasury in fraud.
Can you imagine if Jeremy Corbyn was the Prime Minister and those figures remained the same? He would be in jail right now.
Absolutely. I mean, this is it. This is purely my opinion, they're a bunch of criminals. They're nice, they're expensively dressed, nicely spoken, and behind the nice manners, they're a bunch of criminals. And that is just my opinion, Nick.
Well, it's
entirely my own opinion.
It's not just your opinion, Alice. I think there's quite a few people at the back there with their hands in the air wishing to agree with you in every way, shape and form. All right, thanks a lot, Alice. 0345 6060 973. Yeah, they're just more nicely dressed. Not you, Bodger.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Not you. You can text 84850. Email nicka@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. This says, Nick, why didn't you drive over the Severn Bridge instead of the Dartford Crossing? It's free now and you end up in Wales. I can't imagine anyone wanting to go to Wales if you had to pay an entrance fee, says Jerry. Wow, that's very offensive, Jerry. Wales is no end of a delight. Are you kidding? It's, I'd say that Wales is as beautiful as Scotland. It's a different kind of beauty. It's more, you'll turn a corner and the scenery will completely change. It's like you'll be in an American sort of fir forest. That doesn't sound right, but that's quite descriptive. An American-style fir forest. And then it'll be like slate, vertiginous cliffs, and then it'll be rolling English-type countryside with sheep, and you never know what you're going to get next. Scotland is more huge and dramatic, but Wales is just concentrated beauty. It's just great. You should try it. You might like it. This says, my 18-year-old daughter needed to apply for a provisional driving licence to open a bank account, although she has a British passport. Isn't that ridiculous? She has no intention to drive. That is ridiculous. And this says, hi Nick, I have a postal vote. Does that mean I have to check I'm me in the mirror? Says John in Croydon. I would always do that to John, because you wouldn't want to make a mistake. Always check it's you before, making any fast moves. This is good advice. I hope you're writing this stuff down, people. 0345 6060 973. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
This is LBC.
There'll be a short pause.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet @LBC. Text 84850.
Everything is going extremely well.
Everything is going extremely well. 0345 6060 973. Let's talk to Claire in Highgate. Is there a good reason why we shouldn't?
Shouldn't what, Nick?
Talk to you.
Oh, no, there's a very good reason why you should talk to me. A thousand reasons.
Nick,
reasons. Before I was going to talk about elections and voting, I just wanted to mention, you just talked about Wales, which I agree with you is very beautiful. But, you lived in North London. Did you ever go up to Trent Park, off from the road from Cockfosters down to Oakwood? Did you ever go there?
Neither there, nor Cockfosters, nor Oakwood.
Okay, because up in that area, that's just quite near Enfield, you're going along in a completely urban area, just buses and cars and shops and boring landscape. And then you turn left down this lane, this little lane which takes you up to Trent Park, and it's like flicking a switch from a city into the depths of the countryside, literally within a second of turning into it. I used to do it a lot, and it used to absolutely thrill me, because it was just such a transformation. And also, what was extraordinary for someone living in a city is that you could see all the seasons change, because it was like a country lane. Anyway, just to mention, it was just so exquisitely beautiful. It was a real experience.
Well, if I'm ever up that way, then I will make a mental note.
Yeah, and there's daffodils up there as well. That site, Trent Park, was used in the war for prisoners, I think, and so that's the big old historic house. But the fields around are filled with daffodils, so it's a really gorgeous place. I just wanted to say something which I've often said and feel really insistent about, which is that voting should be 16 plus,
yes,
for sure.
Correct.
And secondly, it should be electronic voting. And everyone who goes on about, the security risk is missing a point. I have all my life been using bank, hole in the wall things. And it's impossible. I've never, ever I've never had any fraud on my bank account, actually. But all you need to do is you can change your password on those things, and you can draw out money and do all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But you can also get your reference number from your local council for your voting. There could be a separate little thing on those machines. And when it comes to voting, you just stick your reference number in, confirm it with your passport, and then you vote electronically.
Yeah.
And anyone who hasn't got a bank account, some people don't, they should be able to use the same system in their post office. Everyone should have access to that system. And then we could have electronic voting, cut vastly all the money out, and make it mandatory, and have none of the above, of course.
I agree 100%.
Thank you, Nick. I told you it'd be nice to talk to me.
It makes complete sense because you're quite right. I mean, if people were given the choice between losing their money or losing their vote, they would rather keep their money, right? And they trust their phone to be safe, to be a safe place to transfer their money here and there.
Yes.
In most cases, you can do it by just pressing your thumb on your screen, so it knows it's you, which is great. That's one of the greatest inventions in the history of humankind: thumbprint recognition. So,
after Shakespeare and cats.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Shakespeare and cats, righto.
Yeah.
But it makes perfect sense to me. It should be everybody over 16. It should absolutely be compulsory, but they're not going to do that because younger people are more likely to have a phone than older people.
Yes, that's right.
And younger people are less likely to vote Conservative, so it's not going to happen.
I just don't know why we ordinary people in the country, just can't find a way of making more impact on policy and government. Because it seems to me, your previous caller who said they're a bunch of crooks, 100% agree. I mean, one of the things about Brexit that people keep forgetting about is that the reason for Brexit, as far as I'm concerned, is because the EU is going to bring in reforms on tax havens.
Yes.
And imminently. And that is the reason for Brexit, and it's hardly ever mentioned. I think the whole system of funding it's just corrupt. Government is corrupt. The revolving door is corrupt, and all the donations. There should be no donations for political parties at all.
It's actually. I completely agree. It's actually staggering. It's kind of deflating and a bit depressing when you see people. There was somebody just lately, who was it, who was convicted, or not convicted, but he was found guilty by the Parliamentary Standards Authority of doing something that he shouldn't have ought to, and he made a ton of money on the side, and it was all very underhand and so on. And his punishment was he had to stay away from Parliament for 5 days. So in other words, they gave him a week's holiday.
Yes. Shocking, isn't it? Really shocking. It's disturbing. I have to say, in complete despair about politics and the future of life on Earth. It just feels to me absolutely impossible. No, really.
Well,
really.
now, wait a minute.
But Nick, climate change.
Right.
I mean, it is a devastating state of affairs we're in. People barely know about it properly.
And, the pushback is enormous because the energy companies have billions of pounds or hundreds of millions of pounds to spend on getting policy to be enacted in their short-term interest. If you have billions of pounds that you can save by spending hundreds of millions of pounds to persuade a politician then of course you're going to do it. Yeah, and the thing that gets me over and over is how cheap our politicians are. You can buy one for about $5,000.
Yeah, I know. The thing is, though, I mean, in my mind, extreme wealth and extreme need for money is mental illness. You know, it's simply unbalanced. So this is the issue, is that all of these people are sick enough to actually want to put the life on Earth at risk, and their children's lives and their grandchildren's lives.
It's
literally
short-termism.
All the culture.
Yeah, it's
horrible.
Short-termism.
How does one combat?
You can't do it.
The other,
let me just finish this thought. Short-termism is what will do for mankind. A few people are making too much money in the short term to enact a policy that will benefit all of mankind in the long term. It just won't happen. And there's nothing we can do about it because they are the ones that have all the power. Money is power. We ain't got none. They've got all of it.
However, there's one thing I want to say which is a little bit critical of LBC. And am I allowed to say it? I hope so. Which is that, well, I have heard
what have I done
too
now?
many... Not you, sweetheart. I have heard too many hosts on LBC repeat the same inflamed opinion when you hear about, say, Extinction Rebellion or people gluing themselves to railings or whatever, which admittedly is extreme, but you have the same line from two very notable names who I won't mention, who just go on and on and on and on about ambulances and people dying in them and they just rant on about this one aspect, and they know nothing about climate change, climate science. And I would love LBC to not allow any host to talk about climate change unless they know about the science, because in effect, they're also spreading disinformation, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, yeah, I get what you're saying, but the thing about LBC is that we are a broad rainbow of opinions and thoughts. So, what you get from one host might be the complete opposite that you get from the host who's following them just after the news.
But climate change isn't a matter of opinion, and when people don't understand the science and we're in such a critical state of emergency, then it is actually incredibly irresponsible to have people broadcasting to millions and millions of people basically ignorant points of view because they don't know about climate science.
Well, speaking for myself, broadcasting ignorant points of view is a living for me personally, but...
No, it's not. Come on.
But
you're better than that, Nick.
I am just exactly that. But I appreciate the thought there. Thanks a lot, Claire. Cheers, my dear. 0345 6060 973. And the thing about climate change is that it will affect the things that you care about, whether or not you think that it has anything to do with them. I mean, the reason that we left the European Union is, I think, exactly as Claire said, that it's a money-saving racket on behalf of the super rich. They didn't want to pay tax. The European Union was inclined to cut out tax loopholes, and at that point, our future was set in stone. And they poured just enough money to persuade us that it would be in our interests to leave the European Union, which it obviously and totally and completely is not. How's Brexit going, by the way?
Fabulous.
There are no benefits, zero. And it's about to get worse because they're about to bin all of the rules and the regulations and the laws that were set when we were in the European Union and we had a say in it. They're all about to disappear. So, the directives about the length of your working week, that's going to be gone. All the regulations about your health and safety, that's going to be gone. And you're going to be relying on the kindness of the company that you work for. I'll just pause and let that sink in. Because there will be no regulations anymore, because we'll bin them all, because that's Smug's thing.
I don't know anything.
He wants to bin them all for the benefit of the country, but it's not going to be for the benefit of the country. It'll be for the benefit of a very few number of people who have already won the lottery of life. And if you think that the company that you work for would be interested in you personally, if it impacts their profitability, well, then I have a bridge over the River Thames I'd like to sell you.
Nick Abbot on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Please hold the line. I'm trying to connect you.
I am trying to connect Mark in Milton Keynes. Mark.
Oh, Nick, hi, man. Happy bonfire night. How's it going?
Yes, very well, thanks.
Excellent. I just wanted to say I've changed my mind on a couple of things recently.
Yes.
And one of them is ID cards. I always thought it was pretty cool that we didn't have to have ID cards here in the UK. But since I've talked to you a little while, I now have residency in Portugal. And Portugal they've got it together finally for us to have, for immigrants, migrants, whatever. Yeah. They like to call themselves expats, but they're not.
Right.
They're migrants. To have the right to, they're bringing in this biometric card. And they take a picture of your eyeball, and they have your fingerprints, and your photograph, and it's going to be a little plastic card, and I can't wait. And a lot of the English people living in Portugal can't wait for it because it's another thing to prove you're allowed to be there.
Right.
And I'm thinking, well, why shouldn't I have one? And they're saying, you want to stay in this country, you've got to have one of them. I'm saying, I'm up for it. Give me one.
Yes.
You know? Do you know what I mean?
Well, yes, yeah, you've been very clear. Yes, I do know what you mean. Yeah.
Excellent.
So
another thing I've changed my mind about is the House of Lords. I always thought the House of Lords, no, it works, leave it alone. But no, if some Russian fella can give them 5 million quid and become a Lord of Siberia, then no, we've got to change that. We've got to change that.
I think the entire lot of them should get fired, and we should start from scratch with voting. Voting 16 plus and compulsory. Yeah. Here, in closing, Mark, what's the weather in Portugal like at the moment?
Don't know, Milton Keynes, it's chucking it down. What do you want?
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Thanks a lot. 0345 6060 973. Chucking it down in Milton Keynes. It was pretty a miserable bonfire night for quite a lot of people. Oh, well, never mind. There's always the next 5 months of the dark and the cold. We've got that to look forward to. Oh, here's the answer from Ranjit about that floating food. Somebody asked, why is it that cod floats when it's done? And the answer comes, when the food is cooked, it floats in the oil, says Ranjit, which is not really an explanation to the question. It's just restating the I got stuck on precipice. It's not precipice, not presumption, what's the word I'm looking for? The premise, not the precipice, the premise of the question. Yeah, we know that it floats when it's cooked. The question is why, Ranjit? No help at all. 0345 6060 973. This is, I'm sure there is no connection between the recent increase in billionaires in the UK and the £70 billion the Conservatives have lost through fraud, says Yanoa. Let's have York. Jan.
Hello, Nick.
Jan.
How are you tonight?
I'm feeling super. Thanks for asking.
Fabulous. Now, you mentioned the Morgan car earlier tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Do you ever watch Bangers and Cash?
No. What's that?
Right. It's a programme about an auction place in North Yorkshire.
Oh, yeah.
And I watched it earlier tonight, and they auctioned Joe Brown's Morgan.
Joe Brand?
Joe Brown. You know, the singer.
Oh, Joe Brown. Right.
Yeah.
And
what do you want to know?
Well, how much was it?
34,500.
£34,500?
What? Yeah.
What,
yeah.
For a car with no roof?
Yep. Joe said it was the best car he'd ever had.
Well, why is he getting rid of it?
He's getting too old.
Oh. That never really appealed to me, driving around in a car with no roof on. I mean, if you're in a convertible, that's sort of different because you can convert it. But if it just hasn't got a roof, then that has to be a big no from me. Because there's never any time. What's odd is, as far as I'm aware, this country buys more convertibles than any other country in Europe. How daft is that? Because you'd think that the kind of weather that would suit a convertible, like driving around with the top down, you'd almost never get it in this country. You couldn't drive around in the baking hot sun because the top of your head would boil.
That's right, too hot, yeah.
Right, so you need cloud, but you also need it to be warm. And how many evenings or days do you get in this country where it's cloudy and warm enough to drive around at like 30 mile an hour with the top down? It must be like 1 or 2 days a year. Why do we buy so many convertibles?
I don't know. But they are nice, aren't they?
And you wouldn't want to. I've never driven one, and you wouldn't want to drive. You wouldn't want to drive around in one in town. It would have to be in the countryside because you wouldn't want to be stopped at lights, like exposed like that, would you?
No, that's right. Yeah. Yes, I see what you mean. Yeah.
I mean, it would be perfect in Italy or Spain, perhaps, or south of France, something like that. That makes sense to me because it's warm even when the sun's not out, for most of the year. But here, I just don't get it.
Yeah.
We're obsessed with them, though.
But you've never watched Bangers and Cash at all, have you?
I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is. I've never seen it. No, it sounds like one of those daytime TV shows.
No, it's on the night.
Oh.
And I watched it one night by accident. You know how you do when you're flicking through. And I've been quite obsessed with it ever since.
Ah.
Yeah.
What, are you a big car person?
No. That's why it's a bit funny, but I do enjoy it.
It's the selling part that you like, right?
I like it all. Yeah.
Well, so presumably they just do up an old car and then sell it, yeah?
Well, they don't do them up, but there is another spin-off programme where they do them up, which is called Bangers and Cash Restored, I think. But
right.
But yeah.
So that's
anyway,
the show. They just sell a car and that's it.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like much of a show.
It is. You want to try it one day? It's quite good. I like it.
But what?
Anyway, there was.
Well, what do they do though? I mean, if they fix a car up and then sell it, that I can see as a show. But not if they just sell it.
Well, they go and collect these cars and, speak to the owners and why they're selling them and then to bring them back and auction them. It is quite good.
Okay,
they sold one of Roy Orbison's a while ago.
Roy Orbison?
Roy Orbison.
Yeah, Roy Orbison probably shouldn't have been driving.
Really? Why not? Why not?
For health and safety reasons, I don't think it would be a good idea for Roy Orbison to have been driving. I'm just saying, it doesn't occur to me that somebody who can't see should be driving.
He could see.
Roy Orbison?
Yeah.
I think Roy Orbison was a non-sighted person.
No, you've got that wrong.
What?
Roy Orbison?
Roy Orbison was blind, wasn't he?
He wasn't.
Hang on a minute. Roy Orbison.
You've got that wrong.
Well, now, wait a minute. Roy Orbison blind, right?
No.
No. Roy Prednisone. This phone is an idiot. It just doesn't... I mean, who is Roy Prednisone? And why would it translate from what I said to that? And now it's gone to optic neuritis.
God.
Which may actually be what Roy Prednisone was suffering from. Roy Orbison blind. Looking it up for you while you wait. Many people assume Roy Orbison was going blind, but he was anything but. You're kidding. I thought he was blind.
No. He did wear dark glasses, but he wasn't blind.
Well, I would have bet money on it.
Well, you were wrong.
The stuff you learn on this show. Educational, no?
No.
Many people assumed Roy was going blind, but he was anything but. His trademark dark glasses he began wearing in 1963, just before a British tour with the Beatles. It happened by accident. When he misplaced his regular glasses, he wore the dark ones, which became his trademark. All these years, I thought he was blind.
No.
Wow.
And I saw him on that tour with the Beatles. Would you believe it?
Did you?
I did, yeah.
Was he the headline act or the Beatles? Who came on last?
I think he was the headline.
Right.
If I remember rightly.
And when you saw the Beatles, presumably that was before they became famous.
Mm.
And how were they?
Well, good.
Well, don't get carried away with praise there, Jan. Just good. That is.
No, they were. They were very good. Yeah. Mm.
But you can't beat the Big O, right?
Well, yes, I like him as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Even though he wasn't overcoming a sight disability.
Exactly. Fancy thinking that. I don't know.
I just can't believe it. It's one of those things that you think you know, and then you don't ever look it up again. You just go through your entire life thinking something that's completely incorrect because you just never looked it up, assuming that you were right. Wow, thank goodness for you, Jan. I feel less stupid now.
Well, I am surprised that you thought that. I can't believe it.
I can't believe it.
Anyway, Give bangers and cash a go. I think you'll enjoy it.
I absolutely will not do that. But
all right then.
Thanks for the suggestion.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
Come on, we're running late.
This message says Steve Allen loves the Bangers and Cash TV show. What does Steve Allen know about Bangers? Absolutely nothing. But it does remind me that next time I see his that giant chrome boat that he uses as a car, I'm going to put my sticky fingers all over it. Grandmaster tweets, battered fish floats when cooked due to air pockets created by the heating process. He says, I've seen a whole lamb deep fried, and I also ate it. Oh, poor little lamb. Bouncy, 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 and then it gets shot in the head. Isn't that awful? Cheltenham, hello, Sam.
Oh, hi. I wanted to make you feel a bit better about Roy Orbison's site.
Yes.
He did, indeed, from childhood, suffer from hyperopia, severe astigmatism, anisometropia, and strabismus.
Right. What's that?
Well, I don't think you could see all that well.
Ah.
So I think, you're sort of half right.
Right.
I actually was going to ring to say something much bit more serious and a bit gloomy. Can I do that? About something you said earlier about Brexit.
Okay, then. Go on, then.
Just briefly. Well, you were talking about people enriching themselves, but Brexit was about tax avoidance and also, betting on the pound tanking. So a few people got very rich from it.
Very.
The thing is that in order to do that, they sort of mobilised all this xenophobia and racism.
Correct.
And least admirable things about this country. And what I kind of want is someone to tell me how this army, the foot soldiers that they despise completely, that they mobilised to get it done, how that's going to be kind of, what's the word, demobilised.
Right, how are you going to put
down?
How
can we stand down?
Yeah. How are you going to put that back in the bottle? Can't be done.
Yeah. Do you know how? I don't know. I want to know.
History will tell us how that kind of thing works out. But the people who have mobilised them, as you quite correctly say, they're not remotely interested in what will happen in the long term, because in the short term, they've made a boatload of money.
That they have. Well, if you find out how this is going to be put back in the box, let me know. Thank you.
All right, I'll have a full report on your desk first thing in the morning. Thanks a lot, Sam. Yeah, it is terrible what's happened to this country. The people that have been telling those that disagree with the way the country is going that they are unpatriotic and they can get out of our country if you don't like it. Those are the people that have actually been ruining the land, ruining the economy, ruining our prospects and diminishing us in the eyes of the rest of the world. So it's not the people that objected to that happening that are unpatriotic. It's the people that made it happen. But they have weaponized hatred, and they're still doing it, which I would guess is why Fishy Sunak has rehired Cruella Suella, because she will keep the people, the anger merchants, frothing with fury, concentrating on the wrong thing. What you should be concentrating on is the wholesale stealing, basically, of billions and billions, tens of billions of pounds of your money. It's just gone. It's vanished. Where's it gone? Can you imagine if somebody had actually physically walked into a bank and stolen that money? Every single police person in the land would be on their case. But because it just disappeared in fraud and incompetence and stupidity, then we just shrug our shoulders and go, oh, well, never mind. Let's think about something else, like the damp boat people, for instance, and we'll kid on that those are the reason that this country is in a state. It's kind of depressing, really. And what's most depressing is that it works. It works really well. And that's on us. We are the ones that choose to believe all that. We choose to be distracted. We choose to direct our hate where it doesn't really belong. and it works every time, and it's international. It works everywhere. Demonize those beneath you on the ladder and try to convince people that they are pulling you down. That's why you are not living the happy life that you had dreamt of. But it's not the people pulling you down who are beneath you on the ladder. It's the people above you on the ladder who are pushing you down. But you don't want to criticize them because they are the ones that are feeding your anger about a small minority of identifiable people. And that's our fault. Pretty much everything that is wrong with the world is our fault because we, the little people, can change it. And we can change it really without any negative effects to us personally. I keep mentioning this. Eventually the internet will be used for something good. Apart from being the greatest source of information that has ever been invented. It's also the greatest source of misinformation. All the bad things come along with the good on the internet. But eventually, some company is going to go too far. Like some company will make, I don't know, let's just pull a number out of the air, £30 billion in free profits and somehow manage to not pay any tax. And worse than that, we owe them money because of some finagling deal that they've done with the government. So they'll just it's like you've pulled the plug out the drain of the economy and all the money just slooshes out. It just goes. Where does it go? And all we're left with is the damp bits from which we have to fund the NHS and the police and the hospitals and, et cetera and so on. And the roads and all of that. But the amount that we have left just diminishes. Because all the money that we pay in as taxes and all the assets that the nation used to own and has now been flogged off, that's just gone. There's no benefit to us. We don't own it anymore. It's disappeared. Where? Who's got it? No idea. The people that have got it are the ones that were already rich in the first place. And all they've done is they've put it on a computer in a tax haven in the middle of an ocean somewhere. And they do it with the connivance of politicians who are bought so easily for such an embarrassingly small amount of money. I mean, we're so cheap. But we could change that just by changing our behaviour. Because if a company like that, it became common knowledge that they had done that and they were basically rinsing this country, people could think, well, you know what, I'm not going to do business with that country anymore, with that company anymore. And if it's an oil company, then all you have to do is just drive by their petrol station and go to the one down the road. It'll only be another half a mile. And if every single person in the country does that, then that company will go out of business in about a month. We could take the biggest corporations on earth and snuff them out like a candle just by dint of our behaviour as consumers. All we'll have to suffer, at most, is a small inconvenience. But we don't do that because we like our conveniences. We'd prefer to get everything delivered to us rather than go down to the high street. And then we go to the high street for whatever reason, and we see that there's nothing there anymore apart from people sleeping in doorways and charity shops, and then we moan about the state of the high street. Well, whose fault's that? We could change the world and everything in it, but we just don't do it because we can't be bothered. We'd rather somebody else do it. It is kind of depressing, and we're so easily manipulated. But anyway, this is a bit of a downer right at the end of the programme, but let's see if I can take a call and it'll cheer us right back up again. Brussels, Emma.
Oh, Nick, it's Emma again here.
Emma.
Oh, I wanted to really bring you out of your
yes. Let's inject a little bit of HAPP-winess. Go ahead.
No, so I'm British, obviously, and I give money to the charity Care for Calais, for example, once a month. Who do great work for refugees. So my thinking is that, yes,
we're in this desperate times, but actually there are all these beautiful people. I mean, as we heard this week, I mean, even the transport police at Victoria Station were helping refugees. Generally, everyone is a good person. You know,
everyone has the capacity to be a good person.
Exactly. For you know, each individual, and I was saying to my mum at the club, we chat to my mum every Saturday morning. I was saying to her this morning, you know, these people. I used to work for Crisis. I used to volunteer for Crisis, and I was not brave enough to do frontline work. I was behind the scenes doing sort of collections stuff.
Right. Well, that's important too.
You know, exactly. And you have all these people with their arms around these
there you
desperate refugees.
Emma, I appreciate you cheering us back up right at the end of the show, but the end of the show has arrived, so I'm going to have to close it there. But just open your arms to happiness. There you go.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC.